Hey everybody, Black Ninja 797 here, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking all the spawn rooms within Call of Duty Zombies. So let's talk about how I'm going to be ranking the spawn rooms. I just want to say, number one, straight off the bat, this is entirely my opinion and my opinion alone. I'm essentially looking at what maps do I end up having the best experiences on when I'm in the spawn rooms. Do I like to stay in the spawn room for a little bit and try to end up racking up some points, or do I just want to instantly leave, or do I even immediately sometimes die the moment I spawn the game if I don't leave right away? Fundamentally, the main thing I'm looking for is layout, because that's pretty much going to impact whether or not I survive, because sometimes certain games end up having other features that allow me to survive, but I'm trying not to make it about the features, I'm more rather trying to make it about just the spawn itself, unless there's an exception. So with all that being said, guys, I hope you end up enjoying today's video. If you do, please drop a like, subscribe if you are new. But now let's rank every spawn room within Call of Duty Zombies. So coming in at our very first spot here, at the very bottom of the list, this is going to be Area 51 from Moon. At first I wasn't sure if I want to even include this within the list, because this isn't exactly a traditional spawn room, it's more rather just a bonus challenge area in my opinion. Because for the entirety of the time that you are at Area 51, there's no rounds. You can't progress rounds, it's just a timer about how long you can survive. You do end up having the ability to kill zombies per normal, but because you don't exactly have the traditional round system, I count this as its own thing. And that's why Moon, when you end up going to the actual Moon, is going to have its own spawn room ranking later in this list, because they're so different from each other. When you are at Area 51 from Moon, it's basically like a mini challenge arena. You can try to end up staying here as long as you want, and you can even get Pack-a-Punch guns, and you can get one of the perks being either Speed Cola or Juggernog, but you have to end up risking your life by fighting hellhounds and zombies that are sprinting at you the entire time, and they will not let up until you either A, leave, or B, kill them all. So it's rather just a test of endurance, but because this is the moment that you spawn into the game, unless you are a hardcore zombies player, which I don't necessarily think I am, I believe that I'm an average zombies player or a casual one, I would just say that Area 51 is just not my type of spawn room. It's cool, and it's nice that it's there. I would just like my spawn rooms to be a little bit more slow and controlled versus chaotic and messy. And then next, back to back, is going to end up being Bus Depot and Transit in that order. These two spawn rooms are so similar, they might as well be back to back. And I will say I like Transit just a bit more because I get things like Quick Revive in here, whereas Bus Depot I do not, because Bus Depot try to do a Nocturnal Toten where all you just get is a mystery box and wall guns and that's it. So I like the fact that on Transit I can at least end up getting my perks. But even though I can get my perks, this spawn room is just still so bad because it's tight, it's got lava still, even on the inside, which is just ridiculous. I just don't like the spawn room. Next is going to be both the spawn rooms on Verrucht, because yes, there actually is two of them, believe it or not, if you've not played Verrucht before. There's going to be one side where you end up getting Quick Revive, and there's another side where you get Juggernog. Now, in terms of which side I would prefer to be on, I would say the Quick Revive side, because in Black Ops 1 and in Black Ops 3, Quick Revive will work in solo, which will be a benefit to you. Now, in this case, I'm playing in World at War, and World at War Quick Revive does not work in solo, so there's really no benefit in having Quick Revive versus Juggernog in this case. So I would say it would just depend on your preference of guns. Next in the list is going to be Alpha Omega. Now, this one's a tricky one, because you could say, hypothetically, that there's two different spawns within Alpha Omega. There's the area that I am in right now, and then there's going to be the area that is a little bit ahead of me here, where I can fall down and start buying my guns. Here's the thing, is that I don't know what you would consider officially the spawn, so I'm going to just address it here right now and say that depending on how you look at it, it's going to be impacting where I put it in the list. So if we're just looking at this area that I'm in right now before I jump down, it would literally be at the very bottom because there's absolutely nothing. You would just have your elixirs and whatever you would have on your character the moment that you spawn in. If you were counting the area past this truck, then I would end up saying that Alpha Omega is good within this spot in the list where it is right now, because at least in that area you can train a little bit better and you get guns. The main reason why I broke Alpha Omega into parts like this is because I found out that there's an achievement that's called Checkpoint Zulu, where you end up getting it if you end up surviving for 20 rounds in a row in this area the moment you boot up the game. So technically, for this achievements to happen, you would hypothetically have to never leave the spawn. So is this the spawn, or is jumping off of the truck and into the other area the spawn? Because you don't have to open a door, it's just that you can't come back here unless you have something like Ragnarok's. See why it's a little bit tricky to rank this one? Next is going to be 5 from Black Ops 1. This is a good spawn room, but damn is it difficult. The giant office table is what makes this spawn room difficult, because it makes everything tight. You basically have to train around this giant conference table the entire time that you are here with an M1911 and any of the nearby wall guns, and that's it. And then yes, I do know about the famous glitch where you can get on top of the table, but I'm trying to rank these based off of how Treyarch intended them to be used, not how they sometimes actually get used. And then shortly thereafter is going to be the classified spawn room. This is just the remake of 5, so it's going to be very similar, although be it very slightly different. The main difference that I noticed is that you can't buy any perks off of the spawn because there is no perk machine. Other than that, just some slight little tweaks, and also just using Black Ops 4 mechanics instead of Black Ops 1 mechanics. Next is going to be the moon spawn, where you're actually on the moon this time. Now, with this one, rounds can progress per normal, but the thing is, though, is that I would say that this, despite being a little bit better than Area 51, is still really difficult because, number one, the astronaut zombie will spawn in immediately on round 1, and if you are not careful and he grabs you, he can take your perks, and that's especially annoying if you end up getting Juggernog on Area 51. And the other thing that makes this difficult is the zero gravity, because since we are here on the moon and there's no gravity on the moon, if you run around in here and you end up going airborne, you can end up having it where the zombies can trap you because you can't cut the corner the way you want to. Next on the list is going to end up being Farm from Black Ops 2. This is just one of the survival maps. So there's not exactly a spawn room per se, you kind of just get the map altogether. Yeah, sure, there's some doors here or there, which means that it is still technically a spawn, but it's like 2 or 3 doors. It's really not that much. You get some things like some perks like Quick Revive and Double Tap because power's already on by default, and some wall guns, but that's basically it. You don't get the good stuff. And because Farm is a part of transit, there is lava and fire everywhere, which is just annoying, because the only map where that's really not an inconvenience to you is Town, because it's just so wide open. But since Farm is more claustrophobic, I end up saying that the lava is more annoying because it's more likely to actually kill you. There's really no good camping or training spot, so it's just really just winging it until you either live or die. Next is going to be the spawn room on Shadows. Now, the Shadows spawn room is really, really tight, very similar to some other ones like Mob of the Dead, where it's just basically a line, but it does have a lot to offer. You can end up getting the summoning key in here, you can end up getting a random power drop, you can also end up interacting with beast mode, so if you want to, you can mess around with that. There's even an Easter egg where you can shoot the Shadow Man in the head and it will progress the rounds for you, and you can do this all the way up till round 15 by just getting headshots on him, which is pretty neat. Now, in terms of survivability, yeah, you're not going to survive that long unless you're a god at training, because this area is so narrow, you are absolutely going to get surrounded if you are not training your ass off and doing this on a regular basis. This area is going to result in you getting just surrounded by zombies. Next is going to be the spawn room of Blood of the Dead. This is not nearly as claustrophobic as Shadows, but it's still pretty damn tight. I would say that this one is just only slightly better because you have an upstairs and a downstairs. It's much better in solo because you have the ability to run around, but in co-op it's going to be really, really tight, and you are likely to end up dying if you are not playing it safe. I would say the upstairs area is a little bit better than the downstairs area too, because that downstairs area, literally the only thing stopping the zombies is basically another table like how it was on 5. Next on the list is going to be both of the spawn rooms on Dead of the Night, because Dead of the Night is the only other map, just like Verrucht, where there is a split spawn system. So there is this side, which I would just deem as the right side, and then there's this side, which I would just deem as the left side. There is basically no difference between these two. They are essentially L's and have just different guns in them, and that is it. It just comes down to your preference on which guns you want to buy off the wall. I would say that for me personally, it really doesn't matter. They're both equals in my eyes. Next is going to be the spawn room on Darice. This one is barely better than any of the ones we've talked about thus far. Pretty much the only reason why this is ranked higher than any of the ones that we've talked about thus far is because this room, although be it it's still not a good room, is at least not just a hallway, and it doesn't have environmental hazards like lava, and there's no boss zombie on round 1 immediately. Although I will say that there is kind of a little bit of an annoyance with the fact that there's these uncommon zombies, which are not exactly boss zombies, but They are definitely stronger than normal zombies. They have military gear, and they take more than one stab on round 1 to kill, which means they do have slightly more health than the average zombie, so if you're not using a good gun, which is basically meaning any of the other guns that are not in the spawn here, that means you can't kill these guys at a reasonable pace. Darice's spawn room is a case of, like, I don't like it, but I don't like the other stuff more. Next is the Voyage of Despair spawn. I was originally going to be more harsh on this one just because I have so many bad memories of Black Ops 4 that I just remember this spawn room being worse than it actually was. But giving it another chance again, I realized that it does have some stuff that is quite helpful. For example, number 1, you can get 1 perk of your choice immediately off rip in the spawn, which is really beneficial to you. And 2, it at least feels like the zombies are not immediately trapping you in the lower rounds like some of the other maps are, because their spawn points are spread out far enough from each other within the ship that you at least have a few seconds to breathe and be able to figure out where the next zombie is coming from instead of rather than just jump scaring you. Next on the list is going to be Nocturnal Toten from World at War. This is the very first spawn room within COD Zombies, and it's really nice. I will say this, is that one of the biggest things that is annoying about this spawn room is the zombies take forever to get to you. It was for the sake of ambiance and being creepy, I understand that, but it is really annoying when you want to end up playing a game and want the zombies to come at you quickly so that way you can just get started, but the zombies just take so long to get to the windows. It really doesn't get good until about, like, I want to say at least round 5, maybe round 6, but by then, you're probably going to leave the spawn room and then end up just going to the mystery box room. You're really not here that long unless you're trying to do the training trick with the flamethrower, and then the spawn room is going to be of use to you again. In fact, it's kind of funny because since Nocturnal Toten is so small, the spawn room is quite literally the best room to be in. Next is Shangra. Now, Shangra has some good things and some bad things about its spawn room. One of the bad things is that the zombies blend in with the environment, which makes it really hard to see them sometimes. The main reason why I'm ranking Shangra where it is mostly because of the monkeys. The monkeys on Shangra end up changing drops for you, which can work out to your advantage. I believe even in the best case scenario, it allows you to get perks, which is super beneficial. If not perks, at least max ammos, which is also really useful. But yeah, the monkeys is pretty much the main reason why I like the Shangra spawn room, but if the monkeys didn't function the way they did, then this would be a different story. Next on the list is going to be Mob of the Dead. Now, circling back to the beginning of the video when I said mostly I'm going to be trying to focus on the layout, unless there's an exception that's pretty notable, the map I was thinking of when I said that was Mob of the Dead, because I noticed that despite the fact that this spawn room is so incredibly cramped, I had a really good time, and I didn't die as much as I was thinking I was going to because of the afterlife system. There is a afterlife box in the spawn, so that way you can activate double points, but you're always going to end up having afterlives on you every single round. As long as you don't use them all immediately, you're going to get one each and every single round. It's basically an infinite quick revive. And that's cool because you hypothetically could never die as long as you play it safe. At least for a decent amount of rounds, that is. The spawn is literally only better just because of the mechanics around the game. If the afterlife system did not exist on Mob of the Dead, and it was just like, let's say, a quick revive machine, like how they have it in Blood of the Dead, I would say that this would probably be lower, but because there is the afterlife, I have to end up ranking it a little bit higher because you quite literally just can't die while in here because of the mechanics of the game. Next is going to be the Treyarch Toten spawn room. Now, the Treyarch Toten spawn room is where we're starting to get into the more roomier spawn rooms. It's not just basically, like I say, a hallway. You can kind of train out here, but there is a catch. The environment has both ice water, and you also can't mantle in Black Ops 4 like how you can in Cold War. So if you fall in said ice water, you have to walk around and find a spot that you can use to be able to get out of the ice water, otherwise you will freeze. And that is very much annoying. If mantling was in Black Ops 4 Zombies, like how it was in Cold War Zombies, and I could just mantle out of the ice water whenever I want, I would just train the zombies through it, and then end up freezing them and use that to my advantage, but unfortunately I can't, so it defeats the purpose of the spawn room tactic. Next in the list is going to be Call of the Dead spawn room. Now, Call of the Dead spawn room is open, just like tags, where you're outside and you can train a little bit, although be it there is some environmental hazards like the ice water, but that's not really the main concern of Call of the Dead spawn room. It's mostly the fact that George Romero spawns in immediately on round 1, and he's a giant threat to you if he ends up killing you, so you have to be aware of him pretty much at all times, and you have to end up training him in the ice water if you accidentally shoot him and piss him off. Even though I haven't played Call of the Dead that long, I'm still pretty familiar with George's mechanics by now by just experience, and I know how to be able to manage him if I need to. But despite my experience, I can still sometimes get unlucky and accidentally piss him off, and then he tries to whack me over the head with his light. So I will say this, is that when it comes to this spawn room, it's more rather just a coin flip about whether or not you're going to shoot George early versus shooting him later, because the longer you stay here, eventually it will happen. So I'm mostly ranking this off of how confident I am that I'm not going to shoot George, so for you that may be different. Next is Buried. I've done a spawn room challenge on Buried before for a YouTube video, and it was quite fun. I thought this would be more difficult, but it really wasn't, and even an average player can get to at least round 10, I would say. Plus, also, there's a cool Easter you can do where if you're on the bad side of things in terms of skill level, where if you keep buying the Olympia over and over again, eventually it will turn into a ray gun wall buy, and you can use that for as long as you want until the game ends up considering you too good to end up keeping it anymore. And in addition to the ray gun wall buy through the Olympia, there's also the LSAT wall buy, which you can get if you end up doing the parkour trick, which I also thought was really cool. Next is Garage Crovy. This really just comes down to just preference of the layout and pretty much nothing more. I just like the way that Garage Crovy's layout is for its spawn room. This is also going to be kind of the same case with the Shinonuma spawn room. This is really just a matter of personal preference. I just like the way that's laid out, and I just love the fact that this is where we're starting to get into the maps where there's no annoying nuisances. It's just a room with just zombies and just guns. No other extra crap needed. Next is going to be Nuketown, which Nuketown's another weird one because since it's a survival map, a good majority of the spawn room is just the entirety of the map, and it's pretty wide open. This is one of the training areas if you're playing co-op, because if it's not one of the backyards, it's just going to be the center of the map. So this by default is one of the better areas to survive in, so I have to put it up higher on the list just by process of elimination. So here's our first Cold War one, and the reason why is because as the games have gone on, the games have now started to get easier again, and a majority of the Cold War spawn rooms are really damn easy. Now, of all the Cold War spawn rooms, I will say that Firebase is the hardest, but by the hardest I mean it's just not a blatant open field or a blatant open area where I can just train endlessly and never die. Firebase Z has a little bit of a more traditional style where it starts off hard in the beginning, and then the map opens up as you end up progressing over time. Next is Zetsubo no Shima from Black Ops 3. Once again, just a matter of layout preference. I think that I can train the zombies more comfortably in this map in comparison to some of the other ones, mostly because I can go down the lip of that hill there and be able to train the zombies and then go back up the hill again, and that's how I end up surviving in this area. Next is going to be the spawn room within Origins. The Origins spawn room, you can end up killing the Templar zombies, which will give you a little bit more points than the average round would provide within Black Ops 2. And upon completing one of the generators, you can end up getting either a double points or a zombie blood out of that soul box down there as a reward, which is really neat. And even though it's not a good gun, I do like the fact they did try to mix it up and end up replacing one of the traditional wall buys that they had going, because for a while they had just Olympia and M14, Olympia and M14 over and over and over again. And towards the end of Black Ops 2 is when we started to get new guns, such as when we ended up getting the Mauser, but we also ended up replacing the Olympia with the Ballista instead, which I thought was just kind of cool because it was just different. Next is going to be the spawn room within Darice and Drac. The main reason why I like this one is because of the tram system they got going. I remember seeing a old video from the Z House back in like 2016 where they did a Darice and Drac spawn room challenge, and they survived pretty decently long. And the main thing I caught on to was the fact that they were just spamming this tram car, because you can get tons of good drops out of here. You can get anywhere from a double points even up to a ray gun, which I thought was really cool. And I like when spawn rooms do fun stuff like this, because it makes it that way if you want to be in here for a spawn room challenge, you actually can, number one, survive, but also two, it makes it fun and goofy. Next is the Ancient Evil spawn room. Once again, that's just another preference thing of the layout. So now we've got Forsaken. This is another weird one because it's like a hybrid. The Forsaken spawn room does have rounds, but it functions like the Area 51 part of Moon again, where if you end up sitting in here for a long enough period of time, it gets more chaotic and zombies will start to surround you because rounds will start to tick on their own without you having to kill zombies to make them pass. I will say this does make getting through the rounds a lot quicker and more efficient. But I'm not gonna lie, it is a little bit boring because number one, we've seen this before, and two, I'm kind of used to this as a feature already in Cold War because all the Cold War maps have that one little machine you can activate that makes the zombies run faster for the first 55 rounds of your play session. Regardless of this hybrid round transition system, the spawn room is still good. It has a nice layout and you can survive even for a very average player for a decent amount of time. And that's really the most important part to me at the end of the day, is how fun or easy it is to survive. Next is going to be Revelations from Black Ops 3. I can also remember when the Z House did a spawn room challenge on this map as well, and that was so fun to watch. I remember trying to replicate with my friends, and we ended up having one of us mount the turret, we ended up having another one of us running around in circles, the other two were just camping. It was a whole bunch of fun, it was chaos, and I loved it. It was a good memory of mine, so I'm not going to lie, this probably is a little bit nostalgia talking, but this has a really good spot in my heart for the Rev spawn room. But I just like it in general too, because I do think that that turret is a really cool feature. I love just lasering down zombies with it. Most of them spawn in front of you too. They only end up spawning on the side sometimes, so you pretty much don't have to worry about them sneaking up on you while you're on it. So this is where we start to get into the really good spawn rooms, and this is going to end up being the Voyage of Toten one next. Malware is an example of what I was talking about with Cold War, where you can basically have it where within the spawn you can just run around in circles endlessly because it's just such a wide open area. I'm literally just on a rooftop, but this building is so big and so wide open that I'm pretty much never having to worry about zombies killing me. In fact, I'm even able to 1v1 the Panzer Sovat, which is a really difficult boss on this map, and I'm just in the spawn room, dude. And then next is going to be Darice, and then after that is going to be the Giant. These are completely and utterly classics for spawn rooms. And this is once again going to be the same thing with Kino. Kino is a classic. I remember dolphin diving off of the steps here in the spawn back when I was a kid. The steps are also really great for training, by the way. If you're playing a co-op game with your buddies and somebody's on the stage, this is a really good substitute. Next in the list is going to be Town. Town has the power on by default, so you can pack-a-punch immediately, you can buy some guns, you can buy some perks like Stamina Up and Double Tap. It's a really, really cool spawn room because the world is your oyster. The only thing you really have to worry about is zombies being on fire and the lava, but since the area is so widely spread out, it's really not much of an inconvenience to you, unlike the other maps like Farm or Bus Depot where it feels like it's everywhere. Next is going to be Ascension from Black Ops 1. Now, this used to be, for the longest time, one of the best spawn rooms within COD Zombies, because within the early games, there really was no such thing as like a good spawn room to camp in. You ended up having to unlock a good majority of the map before you found a decent spot. And a lot of the older games were more about camping rather than training. Training was a thing that kind of got developed over time. So with Ascension, this was like the original OG training spot was in the spawn room. And that little spinning thing that was in the spawn room here that was with you, that thing could have also killed you if you were not good at training. So this was kind of like a really, really good training ground for getting good and developing training as a skill. The only thing I just will say this is that I'm not really a big fan of the black and white filter. That I wish I could get rid of. Next on the list we have got 9. How 9 could have been almost the perfect spawn room for COD Zombies. You've got a completely perfect circle that you can just run in this over and over and over again. The fact that you can also be able to do challenges within the spawn to get great rewards, such as pack-a-punching your starting gun straight off the rip, is incredible. The only thing that holds this back from being number 1, though, is the fire traps. Now, I understand that this is to balance it, so that way you can't just live here forever, but I'm not really a fan of when people try to end up balancing PvE games. Like, who's complaining about dying too much? The zombies? That's not happening. And coming in at the number 1 spot is going to be D Machine from Cold War. This spawn room is perfect. The perfect circular/oval layout. I can be able to train the zombies and be able to kill them at my own speed and desire. I can also make the rounds go by quicker because of the Cold War mechanics, and I can do this up to round 55. I can be able to buy kill streaks and other equipment based off of that little bench that they got. I can refill my ammo at my leisure from the ammo box, and because I did the Easter egg, I have a purple gun by default, so I never have to worry about getting a better gun out of the mystery box. I literally sometimes, just for fun, will just stay in D Machine's spawn room and just run circles when I'm bored. It allows me to basically get that itch for COD Zombies when I want to do it without the commitment. This is fun to me. This is a nice little challenge that I can just do just to tickle my brain, and I love it. That is why, in my humble opinion, D Machine has got the best spawn room within all Call of Duty Zombies. But yeah, guys, that is going to be it here for today's video, and I do truly hope you guys ended up enjoying it. If you did, please consider dropping a like, comment, subscribe, follow, and all that beautiful stuff. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with my list in the comment section down below, and if you do happen to end up having your own list, feel free to let me know what that is in the comment section down below. I'm curious how you guys would rank them, if it would be either the same as me, or if it would be slightly different than me. But with all that being said though, guys, I do hope you end up enjoying seeing another YouTube video from the most unique YouTubers we're ever going to see. Thanks for watching, guys. I love all of you, and peace out.
Hey meme lords, Jesus here, and you better have enjoyed that video there by the eternal god Daddy Ninja. You should probably subscribe too, or the mighty Moab will come for your balls. If you enjoyed the video, you might like it too, and give me the memes. Flash, bang, boom!